I'll call this meeting to order at 9:05 a.m.
Recording in progress.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll? Establish quorum.
Director Desmond?
Here.
Director Dickinson? Director Guerra? Director Hume? Director Kennedy?
Here.
Director Lopez-Taff?
Here.
Director Maple?
Here.
Director Pratton? Director Robles? Director Rodriguez?
Here.
Director Rorba?
Here.
Director Sander? Director Cerna? Director Vang?
Here.
We have quorum.
All right, thank you very much. Director Rodriguez, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Absolutely. Hands over heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And Madam Clerk, do we have anything to read to the record?
Yes. Members of the public are encouraged to observe the meeting in real time at metro14live.saccounty.gov, participate in person via Zoom video or teleconference line, and by submitting written comments to boardclerk@airquality.org. Comments will be delivered to the Board of Directors. Public comments regarding matters under the jurisdiction of the Board of Directors will be acknowledged by the chairperson, distributed to the Board of Directors, and included in the record. This meeting of the Sacramento Metropolitan Air Quality Management District is live and recorded with closed captioning. It is cablecast on Metro Cable Channel 14, the Local Government Affairs Channel on Comcast and DirecTV UVerse cable systems. Today's meeting replays on Saturday, March 28th, 2026 at 1:30 on Metro Cable Channel 14.
Thank you very much. And before we dive into the consent calendar, I just wanted to say our fearless executive director, Dr. Ayala, unfortunately is not able to join us today. He did have a pre-planned travel for today. And unfortunately, for those who've experienced what's happening in our airports across this country, it was wise for him to get there earlier in order to not miss his flight. And so we will miss him today, but we are in very good hands with our wonderful team here. So I just wanted to say that. And with that, we will move to the consent calendar. Do you have any items that members would like to discuss separately? Poll? Have comments? Seeing none.
I'll move the item.
Okay, I have a motion.
I'll second.
A second. Do we have any public comment on the consent calendar?
Not this time, Chair.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? That passes unanimously. We move on to our first discussion calendar item, 6.1.
Item 6.1, report on organizational assessment and leadership development from integrated communication strategies. And I have Megan Shepard in chambers to begin this presentation.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. We're pleased to bring forward an update today on the organizational assessment and leadership development work the district has been engaged in over the past several months. As part of our ongoing efforts to strengthen alignment, communication, and overall effectiveness across the board executive team, we partnered with Integrated Communication Strategies, or ICS, to help guide this work. They've spent time gathering input, facilitating discussions, and helping us take a thoughtful look at where we are and where we can continue to grow. I'd like to introduce Bill Mueller and Jerry Acevedo from ICS, who will walk you through what they heard, what they learned, and some recommended next steps. Bill, I turn it over to you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair Maple and members of the board. It's good to be with you this morning. Bill Mueller with ICS, and thank you for that introduction. And my business partner, Jerry Acevedo. We're very happy to be with you today and to explain just a little bit about the work that we're doing for the district, and also share the results of a survey done of a representative sample of the board and what you all were telling us, and we want to reflect that back to you and see whether that holds, whether you concur with that, and sort of the direction that sets. So that's why we're here today. Who we are advisors to local governments, to statewide foundations, business groups, and educational institutions here in the greater Sacramento area. Our firm and myself in particular have about 30 years of experience working in the air quality field in a variety of different roles. And so it's wonderful to be working with the Sacramento Metro Air Quality Management District once again. So we'll be covering a little bit of background about our work, some findings from the board interviews, and implications and next steps. So this work began because Dr. Ayala reached out and began a conversation with us as part of a broader conversation about the challenges that the district face. These are some, just the world that we live in today, the post-COVID-19 experience, a lot of ambiguity when it comes to state and federal policy priorities, shifting expectations when it comes to air and climate challenges, ever escalating community expectations, funding uncertainties, and in that operating environment, one impacting not just the board, but also staff. He and our firm outlined sort of a two-part engagement. One was to do a bit of an organizational assessment of how the organization is doing in the midst of all this dramatic change, and also to check in with the board. Dr. Ayala continues to be very much wanting the staff and the organization to be in lockstep with the board. And so having the ability to do a bit of a touch base with the board and a check on what degree of alignment exists was very important to him. So I'm not going to necessarily reflect on too much here beyond this slide on the work done with staff, but we have done extensive work with the leadership team that includes interviews, one-on-one meetings, group sessions, all around teamwork and leadership. And again, in this highly polarized and disrupted environment, just providing them the opportunity as a team to work together and to work collectively towards the board's goals. So that is on a very positive front. And you can see at the bottom of this slide, focusing on issues of communication, coordination, and collaboration, and working up that chain. So your staff team, which is already an incredibly high-performing staff team, can be an even better staff-performing team in this chaotic operating environment. So the main purpose for being here today is to talk about the board interview results. So working with Dr. Ayala, we conducted 6 interviews. It was a cross-sample of the board, 60 minutes each, a set of preset questions that were questions about the district, about district priorities, questions about the degree to which the district was headed in the right direction on hot policy topics that you talk about at every board meeting, and really used as a way for Dr. Ayala as well as Vice Chair Maple and Chair Keno to really sort of be in step with you and in step with staff. So here is the result. We found in the survey results that partner awareness was relatively high. Your partners being local governments, various organizations that are in the air quality space, but widespread general public awareness was actually quite low. And notwithstanding the great work that Janice and others are doing in community, the widespread knowledge, according to the board, of what actually the air district is and what it does on a day-to-day basis is not necessarily common public knowledge. The top threats that this sampling of board members highlighted was wildfire smoke, policy funding uncertainty, and the challenges of trying to address air quality in a car-centric region. So nothing terribly surprising there, but it did help to sort of frame up what the issues were that were top of mind for board members. The AB 617 community work was an area of inquiry for us. We wanted to check in with, again, a cross sample of the board. Are we headed in the right direction? Are these the right level of energy and emphasis that we should be paying? And it was a very clear across this sample that this work was very important and that it was also highly valued. We asked about the district's relationship with other government bodies, which of course is more important today than ever, knowing that not one agency is able to accomplish its mission alone. So the review was that the relationship with transportation agencies as well as with SACOG was strong. And board members had many positive things to say about Dr. Ayala, with the leadership team and the rest of the staff, just highly competent, very trusted, and that it's part of your credibility and core strength. When we asked about the question of public education, are we doing enough to educate the public, and this is the general public now, 5 of 6 of the survey respondents said probably not enough, that we could be leaning more into building better public awareness about the district and the district's role. On policy advocacy, which is something, especially these days, that we're always very sensitive to, are we leaning in too much? Are we holding back? What is the right level of policy engagement? And one of the, I think, obvious facts is that you have an executive director who has an incredible acumen when it comes to these issues, not just strength here in the region, but statewide, nationally, and also internationally. And so you have an executive director who is easily classified as a policy leader. On that question, 1 of 6 said you could do more, but 5 out of 6 said, no, the way that you're leaning in on policy is just about right. On land use transportation, when and how to engage was actually an open-ended question that we asked, and it was a question for you all. It was, are we engaged in the land use conversation at the right time and early enough in order to influence that outcome? And that is an open question and maybe an unresolved issue for this board. Quite some time ago, the Air District crossed a threshold where the lever of being able to improve air quality outcomes was relegated to mobile sources alone. That in order to pick up the last 10 or 15%, that the Air District needed to focus on land use policy because of how it governs mobility and how it also contributes to air quality issues. So the involvement in land use issues is an absolute area and domain that the Air District needs to be in. So there's no question there. You've been playing in that role for some time. But the question is, are we doing it early enough, and are we doing it, aggressively enough or not enough? And, what, again, is the right calibration based on the upcoming issues? So I'll leave you with, that's an open question that these board members had is, are we engaging at the right moment? Are we engaging early enough? And is the voice and the concerns of air quality being heard by those other policy agencies, governing bodies, as part of their considerations? The overall advice that we received from this sample was avoid politicization. That one of the advantages of this district is that it's data and evidence driven, and by using data and evidence to make its points as opposed to a particular sort of set of values or ideology, that being driven by data and facts would it help you avoid taking sides while still staying mission focused. So these are words lifted directly from these interviews. So this is the second to last slide. So the implications that we worked with the leadership team as well as with Dr. Ayala on is we might want to consider stepping up public engagement. What might that look like? Engaging with key informants, key stakeholder groups, with the business community, using trusted messengers was highlighted, and putting together sort of a even more energy and a concentrated effort in that area was viewed as valuable. Another interesting facet is that, and I'll read this, your message may be more important than the messenger, AKA the district. So there was a very interesting conversation about, well, does the public actually need to know that the Air District is behind this, or do they really need to hear the message of that air quality and land use considerations and mobility is important to them? So we think, as communications advisors and more, that really focusing on the message is more important than trying to build brand visibility. If your stakeholders know who you are, that's probably sufficient. That's probably good enough. That maintaining your public education advocacy posture in a way that is community health focused and data driven and non-political was really important. In an era when people latch on to what people say and maybe take it to an extreme or misinterpret it, being really focused on community health and being very data driven in the way that the agency proceeds will help it achieve its mission. And so that was one of the implications. And then the last one, again, and this harkens back to the conversation about land use, is there's probably an opportunity moving forward of deepening coordination with your land use agencies, with your transportation planning agencies and others, and making sure that the implications of those decisions and what the air quality effects of those are is really important. And it's a way of extending the mission and the role of the Air District, but also enhancing coordination and communication with those agency partners. So to wrap up, the overall signal from these board member interviews is that the board really felt very strongly that the organization was on the right page. It was doing the right things that were very meaningful, but boosting public education, finding ways to engage earlier on decisions outside of the air quality realm that nonetheless had air quality implications, and then really sort of focusing on the core issues of wildfire, land use, technology transition, and maintaining that sort of health orientation in your messaging was very important to the district now and probably over the next couple of years. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. And again, it's wonderful to be working with you.
Any questions from directors or comments?
Well, I have a few
Yes.
comments. I'm so glad that we're having the discussion. One of the things that I continue to say is that as we continue to grow, and Sacramento has a plan to grow quite a bit over the next 20 years. But we are still building car-dependent communities. And so I asked the question, where is that conversation taking place about incorporating transit into communities so that we don't have communities that have to depend on getting in their car, getting to where they need to get to. And a part of me feels a bit defeated. Can the Sacramento region ever get to that point where we can be? And I'm not sure that I don't have the answer. It feels like it's not possible anymore just because of how we're growing and how we're set up. And it's I'm a big supporter of SB 79 that puts density into where transit is, because it gets people into roads. But we're seeing our roads crumble. The unincorporated has a PCI of 40, which is really bad. Most jurisdictions are struggling unless they have a sales tax that can invest into their roads. But
it really leaves me with the question of how do we get to the point where we can incorporate transit into communities so that we don't get people into their cars where they have to get to, get around. I thought maybe we need to take elected officials, get them on a bus, drop them off somewhere in Sacramento County and say, all right, now get to a destination. And then you can feel the pain that people have that they need to walk quite a bit, that the bus takes a long time, and people don't have 2 to 3 hours to get from one place to another, and then in the evening get back to that destination. And so I always appreciate these conversations because it highlights that we have Sacramento region has, for me, a problem when it comes to transit and and the mobility. If you live in the Sacramento area, like downtown Sacramento, I think there's a lot more capabilities of doing that. But once you get into the suburbs, it's very difficult.
Yes.
So thank you for the conversation.
You bet.
I think that's a really interesting discussion too about like some of the greater maybe advocacy priorities that we could focus on as a part of some of this discussion, or even some of the communications ideas. So hey, what impacts air quality? Hey, if you're in your car and you're driving a gas-powered car and you're stuck and you're idling and you're in traffic so public transit could be a great way. I think that makes a lot of sense in the context of comms and advocacy. Yep. Okay, Director Dickinson.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation, Bill. I think the question that it leaves me with, and then I have a comment or two, but the question it leaves me is, so what now? Mm-hmm. You've done this work. You did interviews of selected members of the board. You've given us what you've distilled from that. And is there some expectation on the part of not so much the consultants, but the staff of what the board is expected to or hoped to do with this? Is it the thought that we will have a discussion of these items, particularly the ones where you said there was divergence, or is this just nice to have, interesting to listen to, and then we go on? And maybe that's a question for Alberto more than anyone else, but I'm curious about that.
So we did have an offsite with the executive team, including Dr. Ayala, and we did work with Bill and Jerry to really reflect on those items. We have taken in the recommendations and put into play how can we increase our media presence, inform the public of our programs. Transit, that's something Jaime works on with his division, to increase awareness, to work on those programs, to influence, to help influence policy with our programs, and so that we can make those smarter decisions for our region. So yes, we're taking that. We do intend to work more closely with Bill and Jerry in the coming months, because we do have more work to do. We did take these recommendations from this board and really see that value, and we want to make progression with that. Mm-hmm. So.
I mean, it does seem to me that what the presentation begs is a discussion at the board with all the members of the issues raised, again, especially the points of divergence, although there may be some distinctions even where you found alignment among the 6 people that you talked to. Obviously, right. The board is significantly larger than that in number. So that's something for the chair and the vice chair and the staff to decide whether you want to agendize a discussion among the board members of these issues. But otherwise, it seems to me it's a reflection of the 6, right. and which may be a reflection of the totality of the board or may not. But speaking a little bit to the issues of divergence, I would just say that I don't see how we can't be advocates, particularly in the times in which we find ourselves. And if we believe air quality is an important value for our community, quality of and character of life, then it's not just about being an agency that does the does the work and puts out the numbers in some form or fashion. It's about being engaged. And I would say, Bill, I would differ a little bit on the message being more important than the messenger. I think the messenger actually is important because if people get the message but they don't know who the messenger is, then they don't necessarily see value in the agency existing when the question comes up about, should there be an air district? Well, we don't think we need an air district, but maybe they're getting the message. Right. So I do think there's an importance to establishing the presence and the importance of the messenger as well as the message. Although emphasis on the message obviously is critical, you know, I don't think you set out to politicize the issues. You do what you described, I think, Bill, which is you do the work, you present the facts, and then you advocate for where the facts lead you in terms of getting to the air quality goals that we're seeking. But if somebody wants to politicize what you're doing, I think you can't necessarily avoid that. And the other thing that I wanted to say is, historically, the Air District has been very integrated with the land use reviews of at least the city and the county, the city of Sacramento and the county. I don't know about the other cities, and I hope it's true there as well. And so I assume that continues, that when that's an issue that needs to be analyzed in the context of environmental review or consideration of projects, things of that you're getting consulted and integrated by the land use authorities on those issues. Is that still the case?
Yes, that's a really great question. And yes, so that's still the case. So I'm very proud to say that we have one of the most robust land use teams in all of I would say all of California. We are also one of the only air districts that has a formal land use team that reviews land use decisions and projects. I will say, though, that we don't review all of them. You know, there's a lot of land use projects, there's a lot of jurisdictions, so we don't see all of them, and we can't comment on all of them. However, we do try to comment on the most impactful, on the ones that have maybe, you know, the ones that are a little more visible. And we make comments on how to make those communities better for walkability, bikeability, and for also transit. We are in line with the transit-oriented development guidelines as well, but these are not rules and regulations. These are just comments and leveraging. So we meet regularly with all of the jurisdictions so that we can comment on these projects and kind of help leverage or provide more insight on how to make these communities with less air quality impacts. All the way from even the very beginning of construction to the land use, all the way to the future of the land use development once it's been constructed already. So looking at VMT and how that impact is going to be from the construction vehicles, constructing the development, all the way to the community members driving in and out of that community. And we also work very closely with SACOG on the MTP, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, and the SCS, the Sustainable Community Strategies, as well, to ensure that as we move forward and as our region grows, that we address those issues.
Yeah.
However, as you know, it's very complicated, right? Because infill development is very expensive and very challenging. And so we do have to balance all of the decisions from all of our land use jurisdictions.
Well, I appreciate that, and that suggests that it still is a cooperative and complementary relationship. I know we used to have a menu when mitigation was required for a project for air quality reasons. There used to be a menu that could be chosen from by the developer or the applicant. And I don't know if that's still the case or not, but that was something. Then you didn't have to look at every project. If there were air quality impacts that needed to be mitigated, then then there was the opportunity to pick from that menu to reach the mitigation level necessary. Is that still in practice?
Yes, that's still the case. And I want to remind the board, we do have an award-winning program called the CAL-EMOD, the California Emissions Modeling Plan, where the developers themselves can look at these mitigation factors and mitigate their emissions down as well. Yeah,
so I think the comment needed to be more integrated, or is that an open question? I think that's answered, it seems to me, by what the staff is doing. But I don't know, maybe there's a different perspective on that.
So the response to that question, and I also wanted an opportunity to talk about the nature of this work and what the next step might be. But on that question, the answer is yes, that there's a tremendous amount of opportunity there. So as far as next steps go, I believe it was Dr. Ayala's vision that by doing this cross-sample, that we would reflect this back to you and start a conversation with the board and use this meeting to sort of gauge your interest in having additional conversations in the future on these topics, obviously subject to Vice Chair Maple and Chair Aquino's sort of decision. But we would hope that these sorts of conversations on these topics could be agendized and part of a broader conversation, given the fact that there is so much turbulence going on, and just having the board be in agreement. And it's not just from the standpoint of how cohesive is the board in its views, but we also compare the viewpoints of staff and the reality they're dealing with and how congruent that is with board. And that's something that at another time we would love to talk with you about.
Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate that, Bill, and I do think this is worth further conversation. So in any case, thanks, Chair.
All right, thank you very much. Director Hume.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you for the report, Bill. It was very interesting, and I agree with a lot of the themes and the things that you said. And I think that one of the challenges we face, and we face many, but one of it is that the urge for politicization, or politicization, however you say that word, the urge is the fact that primarily a lot of the work that we do is very regulatory. And so that feels punitive to folks, and especially when those regulations are set up and enacted without a lot of recourse or input from the folks who they affect. And then the bigger challenge is you can't disprove a negative. And so what would our air quality be like if we weren't here doing this work? Right? And breathing is one of those functions that's semi-autonomous. I mean, literally it happens while we're asleep. We don't have to put a lot of thought into it unless we're meditating or performing some sort of exercise or martial arts or something. And so it's sort of this thing where, like, that doesn't really affect me. So why am I having to meet these standards? And so what I'd like to key in on is that sort of rare moment where the message and the messenger are combined. And that's when the rubber is meeting the road and we are enacting our regulations on particularly a business who's trying to upgrade a piece of equipment. And so I have two real-world examples. One where, it's a processing piece of equipment, and they wanted to go to a new piece of equipment that would run more efficiently, that would have less air quality impacts, that was better for the environment, but because it was more efficient, it could process more material, which meant that was an expansion, which is then disallowed because of, right? And so here they're trying to do what they see as the right thing, and they just get hammered back down, and they go, okay, fine, well, I'll just repair the dirty old machine and keep running it, right? And then another example is one where somebody's going through the processes that they have to do in order to get the clearances and check the boxes and all the things. And they get a letter saying, well, we have until this date to respond to you. And they go apoplectic. They lose their mind because that's 3 months out. And they think, I'm trying to keep my business rolling here. And then lo and behold, staff takes a look at it. It's a fairly perfunctory issue, and they're going to get it processed within a couple of weeks. I mean, this is a real-world example that happened literally this week. Somebody lost their mind, contacted my office. We looked into it. Staff said, it's not that big of a deal. We'll get it processed in a matter of weeks. But because that initial message said, state law allows us to take this long. right? Now the messenger has become the message. We are more powerful and important than you, and we'll let you know when we've made our decision. And so it's moments like that where that chance to make a good impression about the data and the science and the things that why we're doing these, why we're being asked to impose these regulations gets lost. And so I think as we look at, how that's our best moment to have something where they come away and they go, look, they can now be proud of what they've done, right? Rather than having this bad feeling that they had to go through this onerous process. So I don't know that that is necessarily what you were tasked to do, but I think as we look at these issues and how we do a better job of telling our story and the why behind our existence, that certainly, I think, is an important touch point.
Yeah.
Great points. Any other comments or questions from board members? Not seeing any. Any public comment on this item? Great. I just want to say thank you so much for this work. And I know I do want to address, I know this was a subset of the board, and I think that was intentional because of the size of the board and because of scheduling and all kinds of other issues. But the goal was definitely not to have, that subgroup be the main views or to represent that, just to more kind of take a snapshot. And I think the intention of this discussion was to get feedback from the group on whether or not they agree with some of these things or think things should be different. So we heard some of that today. And then I do believe that the goal is to schedule additional discussion items so that we can hear more in depth about some of the specific things that we talked about. Just a couple, I agree with a lot of what was said here. A couple things that came to mind for me was we have a great resource here, which is this board. Each one of the people here represents different communities. They're very tied in. They know their community members. They know their neighborhood associations. They know their CBOs and so on and so forth. And so I think to the extent that we can really utilize that and help gain more reach through that, I think that's a really smart thing to do. And I think that should be a goal of ours. I know we already do that, but continuing to do that. And then the other thing that came to mind when you had the comment about whether or not it's the message or the messenger, and I agree it should be both. But I think one key thing I would love for the public to know is that this is the place to come to engage on air quality issues, to bring concerns, to bring ideas, to bring questions. And obviously I know these spaces are not always the most conducive of that. In fact, like a day like today when you might not have anyone who comes in. But I certainly know that if folks were aware of their ability to engage with this agency on those issues, we might get even more. And so I think that that's an area I'd love to see more of. And so, Bill, I thank you so much for your time and for your presentation. We'll move on to our next item here, seeing no other comments and more discussion to come. Thank you.
Item 6.2, Commercial Sources Strategies Update, Community Air Protection, South Sacramento, Florida Community, and I have Amy Roberts in charge of your presentation.
Good morning, Vice Chair Maple and members of the board. I'm very happy today to be with you. Good morning. And today I'd like to continue the conversation of our AB 617 Community Emission Reduction Program and the strategies that are contained in that. All right, so on the slide, you'll just get a quick reminder of the timeline that we have for the SERP. And we are in March and continuing that review with you. And you'll see that we are headed towards summer and an adoption of the plan. All right, so during the last board meeting, you were provided information on the strategies related to urban planning and mobile sources. Today, I'll be providing information and an overview of the strategies that are related to our commercial sources that are part of the SERP plan. And you'll hear next from my colleagues on the residential and outreach strategies that are also part of that plan. If the plan is adopted, our objective is to implement all 28 strategies in these 4 categories during the 5-year implementation period. During our mini meetings with the community members, brainstorming workshops, we heard about what was important to our steering committee and our community members that attended. And some of those were related to our commercial sources. The 6 strategies that you see on this slide here emerged as a focus for inclusion in the SERP, and these were mainly surrounding providing additional education to our public and small businesses. Aligns very much with what we just heard from Bill from ICS. Also improving access to air quality and compliance information through a public information portal, and also having more of a focused enforcement effort within the community. The 6 strategies that you see here were prioritized to help our communities and businesses make healthier decisions. Now let me highlight and provide you some additional details on several of these strategies. The first one that I want to go over with you is related to nail and hair salons. There are many of these located within the neighborhoods in the AB 617 community boundaries. And often they were brought up and mentioned by community members and our steering committee members because not only the workers but the customers that go into these salons can be impacted and exposed to toxic chemicals and indoor air pollution. Within the South Sacramento Florida community, we have many businesses that could benefit from knowing what are the best practices for my business. How can I keep my employees safer? How can I clean the air within my salon? So that was really became a focus of the community and part of this strategy. You can see here that this strategy is very much related to creating educational materials that could be passed to these businesses, and also working very closely with our potential partners. We've got a really strong list here of those, and that's because there's been a lot of work already within the state, at the state level, and at other cities and counties where they have really focused in on nail and hair salons. So we already have, we're not starting at ground zero on this strategy, so it's really great to have that early work already developed. And also, we're going to be partnering very closely with the Sacramento County Business Environmental Resource Center because they have a program already in place called the Sustainable Business Program, and create the potential of creating a recognition program is something that falls in line already with the work that they've been doing. So we think that we can pretty easily work with them and tailor not only an education program, but even potentially some kind of recognition program that's been done in other areas. All right, I'll move on to another strategy out of the 6. This is related to our public information portal. So again, this is all about getting information out to the public and making them very aware of what's going on, getting air quality and compliance and permitting information out to them. So this particular one would be creating and developing a Public Records Act request module. It is something that is in the works to make improvements there. And through this strategy, we would be getting community input on how to make it as user-friendly and easily accessible as possible. And we're looking at this as a fairly quick turnaround that we would be able to get that work done this year, and then also be able to make sure that we have the appropriate training materials and educating our public about how to use it. So not that it's just tucked away on some website, but the word gets out so that they understand that that's available for them. This always helps people stay informed and be aware of what's going on and get information that they need. All right, and the last strategy that I wanted to cover with you is also related to education of businesses. So not only nail salons and hair salons, but the community also was looking at other small businesses that would really benefit from having additional education, information about best practices, what incentives are available to them, and the 2 key business types that the community focused in on were auto bodies and landscaping businesses. We all know that many of those businesses they're small, they're family-owned. These are businesses that would really benefit from additional hands-on education. And so that's what the strategy really is getting to, is developing the outreach material where this could be a door-to-door effort on the ground, going to businesses that could be impacted and benefit from that kind of education. You also see here again that we've got our partners on the list, and again, the Business Environmental Resource Center factors very closely with the work that we're doing on business education. So they'll continue to be a partner with us as we brainstorm with the community on what can be done here. We've also got other partners. Breathe California has raised their hand as potentially assisting in this effort. Property and business improvement districts obviously are a pretty go-to for us to get the information out. And community steering committee, our members in the community, they always have great ideas and understand because they're on the ground and know what businesses are out there. So this is the last strategy that I will highlight for you today, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the commercial strategies. Otherwise, I will pass it on to my colleague, Jaime Lemos.
All right, so we have a couple folks with questions and comments. Director Rodriguez.
Thank you, Amy, for the presentation. Thank you, Amy, for the presentation. So when you mentioned the landscaping and other businesses, do you anticipate there will be a bilingual information that will be given to these businesses?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
and then
definitely.
also. You're right. Oftentimes, when I think of landscaping, I think of they are small businesses. They probably have, their home where they store a lot of their equipment. What is the plan to connect with them to be able to provide them with the education and the information that is needed?
Some of that we'll be working with our incentive team. We've already been doing work in this space. We do have an incentive program already, so it would be connecting with that business list that we already have. There are other business, advocacy groups as well that will be able to help with that outreach and assistance. And also, as I mentioned, we've also got community members that might also have information that would be able to provide to us of really good outreach and advocacy groups.
And oftentimes there are grants that are given to certain businesses, and again, I'm going to use landscaping to go from a gas generated equipment to electric, where electric may be more expensive, the batteries are way more expensive, and they don't last as long, so it means they have to carry more batteries on them so that they can get through their day's work. Is there a plan to possibly connect them to any possible grants out there that may be able to assist? Because times are tough, and I anticipate just some of these families may not have the ability to be able to have a great investment in trying to, go green with the intent of, improving air quality.
Really great question. Thank you, Director. And I'll let Jaime Lemos in the next presentation that you'll see. He'll be able to answer some of those questions.
That's good. Thanks. I can wait.
Director Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding the nail and hair salon outreach and so forth, to be more specific to Director Rodriguez's question, I assume it's going to be in Vietnamese?
That would definitely be a key target audience, obviously.
Since 96%,
Yes.
yeah. And then the other, you're partnering with, or you're reaching out and working with Burke and Environment and Economic Development. I might also suggest that you reach out to, on this particular subject, public health. During COVID, they worked closely with the nail salons and so forth, and the businesses did a phenomenal job of following the rules once they knew them. But public health has a lot of those relationships already.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, seeing none, we can move on to the next portion of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
One second.
Good morning, Vice Chair Maple and members of the board. So I'm going to continue on with the next set of strategies here on residential sources. And so last month we presented on urban planning and mobile sources. You just heard my colleague Amy speak on commercial sources, and then I will touch on residential sources, and then we'll move and we'll end with outreach. So these are some of the strategies within the community emission reduction plan that impact residentials. And so we called it residential sources, but really this is what touches someone who lives in a home or an apartment complex. This is now affecting people or impacting people as opposed to businesses. We have clean air products, portable air purifiers, electrification of household appliances, residential lawn and garden, which I'll talk a little bit also too about commercial, air filters in indoor public spaces, which is also connected to portable air purifiers, and then also education and raising awareness on the proper use of on masks. As I mentioned, I'm not going to highlight all of them, but I will touch on some of the ones that have been really most more important by the community members. We've heard lots of community members talk about the electrification of appliances within their homes. It was a lot of a surprise to me because, you know, when I think about my mom, she says, don't change out my stove, right? But within our community members, I think we are past that. So many of them now are saying, okay, I think I'm in on this, right? Especially as it's going to impact potential gas bill, right? And then also indoor air quality. So we've been working with our partner SMUD, who has had a program like this already in the past. Their previous program was to electrify the entire home, which was a really great benefit for the homeowner or someone who lives in a house. But this time, we're going to impact appliances by themselves. So single appliances, maybe not the whole thing. We were hearing before that it was really challenging to get everything electrified. And so this time, we're just going to do onesies and twosies. And I think the dollars will go much further as well. This was a plan that had been set in place by SMUD when they surveyed people as well, the community members, and said, this is probably more effective. And then there's probably going to be pockets in the community where we're going to target all gas appliances and move to all electrification. So it'll be a combination of both. To address Director Rodriguez's question, we are going to also be launching the residential lawn and garden. So we currently have a commercial lawn and garden where we do provide awareness and we do advertise to the local landscapers in multiple languages. But this is now for residential, right? These are your neighbors. These are the folks that you know, you might have your electric lawn equipment, but your neighbor still doesn't, right? And so we are going to be providing incentives for the residential lawn and garden equipment. It is going to be a scrap and replace, though. So, which means that you have to have existing equipment in order to surrender that. We scrap it, we reduce the emissions, and then you get new equipment. There is potential conversation about maybe just doing a voucher program to get new lawn and garden equipment. But as of right now, because we're going to be coupling these dollars with our traditional Carl Moyer program, there is going to be a scrap component that's going to be required. In addition to that, it's a way that we can measure the metrics and the emissions on the community emission reduction plan as well. So remember, the emission reduction plan is about reducing emissions, and so this was a strategy identified. And then last thing I wanted to note on this is some of your local jurisdictions have these type of strategies embedded in their climate action plans. And so we have been in conversations with many of them on how to integrate these things so that we could supplement and support the climate action plans. Air filters and in indoor public spaces. This was something that was also brought up by the community members, but we are going to be pushing this to probably year 2 and 3 because the other strategy identified was portable air filters. So now we have portable and then also air filters in indoor public spaces. And so let me just maybe talk a little bit about the differences. The portable air filters are just these small little appliances that you plug in and they recirculate the air in your house and they clean up the air. This strategy is more of your HEPA air filter intake, so like this structure here, and all of the air that it recirculates more of on a commercial or industrial level. And so since both of them are about air filtration, whether it's in the home or in the commercial or facilities, buildings and structures, we decided to move them and pair them together so that we can have a better impact and just kind of do a more of an economies of scale and more efficient program. These type of programs are very important. We have wildfire days, we have spare the air days, and so sometimes when we set out these alerts, many of the communities let their community members that probably not a good idea to be outside, engaging in outdoor activity, so let's stay inside, and so we want to also ensure that they're being safe indoors as well. And that is it. I'll take any questions.
All right. Any questions from directors or comments? Seeing none, assuming we have no public comment.
Not at this time, Chair.
Okay, and then I believe we have one more presentation on the same grouping of items.
It will be, it's
6.4.
a separate item.
Okay,
So we just finished item 6.3, residential sources strategies.
so now we're on 6.4.
Now we're on
Great.
6.4.
Thank you. But they're all related
Yes.
to AB 617.
Yes.
All right. Good morning, Vice Chair Maple and members of the board. My name is Janice Lamb-Snyder, Director of Community Air Protection, and I'm going to be touching on the outreach strategies that our community has developed. So first, I want to start off with that outreach is very important to the community when we have spoken with them. They wanted to ensure that any of the strategies that we are going to be implementing has the foundation that the public understands why we're doing this and how does this impact their health. So these are the 5 strategies that are included in the SERP. I'm going to be touching on a few of these in the presentation, and really, it is the ultimate goal of all of this is to create awareness, create that trust within the community that we are a trusted source of air quality information. So the first one that I'll touch on is participating in outreach events. The community really recognize that it is important to go where the people are and to not necessarily only rely on the public and the community to come to meetings that we host maybe outside of the community, and make it easier and accessible for folks to get this information. So one of the ways that they want to tackle this is to ensure that we are participating in events that's already happening in the community. And what that also does is that it creates partnerships with those trusted community groups, as well as events that they might already be familiar with. And so in last year, we were able to, we set a bar of 6 events and host an event. We certainly had surpassed that. I think we had went over a dozen of them. And then in the future years, they set the number of events to 8, recognizing that there's a few holiday months that it may be more difficult to have folks host an event, or have folks be able to attend those events more regularly. And then obviously we want to ensure that we're including our potential partners. Our steering committee members have been vital to this particular strategy because they accompany with us to these events where they also become the trusted source of information to their community members and their neighbors. Obviously, local partners such as SMUD, the county libraries, CBOs that we've been regularly working with can also help us reach deeper into the community. The next strategy that we have is outreach through traditional and social media. So it's important that we diversify the way that we reach the community. And so this year, what we're looking at is creating and sourcing the materials with our community on what's important to disseminate, and also be able to create a media kit for our community members, for our CBOs to also use, and to expand and eventually expand our partnership with local media to reach, again, deeper into more diverse ways of communicating our information.
Yeah, Janice, if I could pause you for a second. I think Director Kennedy had a question.
Thank you, Chair. Apparently, you're not aware that we have a culture of rude interruptions at the county supervisors. I wanted to go back to the outreach events, and can we make sure that board members know when these are happening, where they're happening, and so forth? We may want to attend those that are in the areas that we represent.
Yes, absolutely. And what the steering committee hopes to do is also to create a calendar of events several months in advance, so that would definitely be, we'd be able to share that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know what I did, Selena. And then the last one that I'll highlight today is promotion of air quality education in schools. Our community members have recognized that, if you are to start with education, let's start them early on. And that also touches on the youth as well as the parents, right, who are going to be working with them to understand this material. So we'll be sourcing age-appropriate materials, participating in school educational events, and hopefully working with school districts to distribute this information and hopefully even have them incorporate them in part of their curriculum as well. With that, I end my presentation, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Always very interesting, especially on the outreach piece. I love the partnership with schools. I think that makes a lot of sense. And as always, I think the district's already doing a better job about this in general, but to the extent that we can go to and attend events that are already happening and maximize that economy of scale rather than maybe putting on our own events, I think that would be a great opportunity for the district, to, even if it's tabling at something, and then just making sure that we're distributing that equally throughout the areas that the district represents so that we're getting that outreach. Director Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. You talked about going into schools and hopefully getting into the curriculum. Do we have anybody at the district that actually follows specifically curriculum that is A to G compliant, so that, because teachers are inundated all the time and they have a limited amount of time they got to check off the boxes. So make sure that what we're saying, we'd like you to put this in your curriculum, but it aligns with what you're supposed to accomplish. Do we do that?
Yes, so we recently had a grant from the City of Sacramento to develop a middle school curriculum that actually was developed by teachers to meet their specific guidelines. And so we actually have a template where it does meet those curriculum guidelines for teachers, but that is one of the ways that we are trying to address that pressure that they have to also do other that they have other needs.
Great, thank you.
And Director Kennedy, I don't know if Chef Luigi can bring that to the classrooms, perhaps. Thank you. Seeing no other comments from directors, any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much. Really, really important work. Obviously very excited to see that in the communities that many of us represent, and ones that really deserve it. So thank you. We'll move on to item 7.1.
So 7.1 is the APSO report. We are going to skip over that.
Okay, good enough for me. You can read the report, I'm sure, in the staff report and learn more. Okay, so we'll move on to board ideas, comments, questions, AB 1234 reports. Seeing none. For public comment not on the agenda, I understand that we have someone on the Zoom.
Yes, we do. We have Sasha Voigt on Zoom to give public comment.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, or actually good morning, depending on when you got up today and what time zone you're in. For those of you that don't know me, I am Sasha Vogt, Twin Rivers trustee for Area 7, which is Old North Sacramento and parts of Del Paso Heights. I want to say, first of all, I was happy to hear the presentation about some of the outreach and curriculum planning that the board is working on, and I very much look forward to partnering with you on that. I'm here today to bring forth parent concerns. They kind of saw this in the portal last minute and started reaching out to me regarding the installation of 2 new crematoriums near Babcock Elementary. Families are very worried about what this could mean for their children's health and daily school experience, as are we. We feel that at the core, it affects attendance, breathing, and their ability to learn. Even if the emission standards are met, we are very concerned about the cumulative impact on a community already carrying environmental burden disproportionately. For those of you who are not aware of the location of Babcock Elementary, it's kind of between Arden Fair, the I-80. It's on the edge of an industrial area. right off of El Camino. And this crematorium is within less than 1,000 meters from Babcock Elementary, where we are also partnering with the city and with Fulton El Camino Parks and Rec to reopen a park that is adjacent to the school. So we're currently reviewing it as a district and asking some questions so we can draft our response. I just want to say today that what I'm hearing from parents and my feeling as well is, as the body overseeing this process, we want to ensure there's a strong review and ongoing oversight that prioritizes the health proximity to schools and equity for our community. It's a lot. And again, although these may be within standards, it's a cumulative effect that we're really concerned about over there, particularly as Interstate 80 becomes more and more congested each day. The influx of traffic with the new housing surrounding the school. And so we're just asking that you take this into consideration and really, if possible, we would love to see the final decision, the deadline for comments extended a bit. As you know, we just settled a labor dispute that impacted our families greatly, missed about 2 weeks of school. We're trying to restabilize this week, and then parents are off spring break. But this is important to parents. Sometimes our parents need access to make public comments, and they would like some time to be heard moving forward, and see if that April 6th deadline for comments could be extended. Okay. So with that,
thank you, Trustee. We will have the staff be in touch with you about the process, and I will inquire about the possibility of extension, and we really appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing nothing else to come before the board, we are now adjourned at 10:11 a.m.